Stop what you're doing right now. Before you scroll past this video, I need you to hear something that took me over 20 years of working with cancer patients to fully understand, and something most people over 50 have never been told by their own doctor. Cancer is not just about bad luck. It is not just about your genes. Research from institutions like Harvard, Johns Hopkins, and the Mayo Clinic now confirms that somewhere between 30 and 50% of all cancers can be prevented. Prevented through daily habits. 30 to 50%. Let that sink in. That is not a fringe claim. That is published science. Today I'm going to walk you through 6 of the most powerful, research-backed habits that I have personally recommended to patients, some of them after a cancer diagnosis, that dramatically change their outcomes. Some of these you have probably heard of before. But number 2 on this list stopped me cold when I first saw the data. And number 1, the final item, is the one that ties absolutely everything together, and it is the one almost nobody talks about. Before we get into this, I want to ask you something. Go ahead and drop a comment right now. Tell me your age and where you're watching from. I read every single comment on this channel, and I genuinely want to know who I'm talking to. And while you're down there, have you or someone close to you been affected by cancer? You don't have to share details, just a yes or no. Because I made this video for people who have skin in this game, people who are not willing to sit back and just hope for the best. Number 6, daily movement. Even gentle exercise changes everything. Let's start with something that sounds simple because the research behind it is anything but. We're talking about movement, not a gym membership, not a marathon training plan, just consistent daily movement. And what researchers have found about its relationship to cancer is striking. A study published in JAMA Internal Medicine, analyzing data from more than 750,000 adults, found that people who were the most physically active, even those doing only light-intensity activity like walking around the house or running errands on foot, had a 26% lower risk for 13 different types of cancer compared to the least active group. 26% from simply moving more. The American Cancer Society recommends 150 to 300 minutes of moderate physical activity per week for cancer risk reduction. That works out to 20 to 45 minutes a day. A brisk walk around the block, riding a stationary bike while watching the news, swimming a few laps, any of these count. Here is what is actually happening in your body when you move. Physical activity lowers circulating insulin and estrogen, 2 hormones that, when chronically elevated, feed cancer cell growth. It also reduces inflammation in the bloodstream, which is one of the root ways cancer gets a foothold in the first place. Think of chronic inflammation like rust forming slowly inside a pipe. A little rust, briefly, is manageable. Let it build for 10, 20, 30 years, and eventually the pipe fails. I had a patient, Robert, 67 years old, from Chattanooga, Tennessee, who came to me after his colonoscopy, showed some concerning precancerous polyps. He had been sedentary most of his adult life. Desk job, retired, mostly sitting. I did not put him on medication. I asked him to do one thing: walk 30 minutes after dinner every night. Just that. Within 90 days, his follow-up inflammatory markers had improved measurably, and his gastroenterologist noted a meaningful change in the condition of his colon. Robert told me, "Doc, I thought you were brushing me off with that walking advice. Now I tell everyone I know." The practical fix is simple. Start with 20 minutes of walking at a pace that gets you slightly warm. You should be able to hold a conversation, but not sing. Do that 5 days a week. If your knees or hips make walking painful, try a pool. Water walking removes the impact on your joints while still delivering the same metabolic benefit. One pairing worth knowing: combine your daily walk with morning outdoor light. We will come back to why that matters specifically when we get to number 3. Coming up at number 5, we're going to talk about something that happens every single night, something you probably never thought of as medicine, but the data on it is so clear it changed how I counsel every patient I see. Number 5, sleep quality, your body's nightly repair system. Picture a maintenance crew that shows up every night, inspects every cell in your body for damage, flags the ones that are starting to go wrong, and disposes of the ones that have already become dangerous. That crew exists. It is called your immune system, and it does its most critical cancer-fighting work while you sleep. Research published in the journal BMC Cancer, analyzing data from nearly 10,000 adults over 50 in England with an 8-year follow-up, found that even moderately impaired sleep quality was associated with a 33% increased risk of cancer. Severely impaired sleep quality was linked to a 59% higher cancer risk. A separate prospective cohort study following 9,996 participants over a median of 9 years found that sleeping less than 6 hours per night was associated with a 35% increase in overall cancer risk and an 83% increase in cancers of the digestive and respiratory systems. Why does this happen? When you consistently undersleep, your body produces less melatonin, a hormone that, beyond helping you fall asleep, has direct anti-tumor properties. Short sleep also disrupts your circadian rhythm, which governs the timing of cell division and immune surveillance. When that timing gets thrown off, cells that should be caught and destroyed can slip through the net. I had a patient, Dorothy, 71 years old, from Phoenix, Arizona, who had been waking up at 3 a.m. for years and couldn't get back to sleep. She had dismissed it as normal aging. When she came to me worried about elevated screening markers, we looked at her habits. Sleep was the first thing we addressed. We worked with a sleep specialist, adjusted her evening routine, and got her consistently to 7 hours each night. Within 6 months, her inflammatory blood markers had dropped back into the normal range. She told me, "I didn't realize I was fighting my own body every night." The practical fix has 3 specific pieces. First, keep a consistent sleep and wake time. Yes, even on weekends. Your internal clock runs on a schedule, and shifting it by even 2 hours on Saturday throws off the whole system. Second, cool your bedroom to between 65 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Your core body temperature needs to drop slightly to trigger deep sleep, and a warm room works directly against that. Third, avoid eating within 3 hours of bedtime. Digestion competes with the cellular repair work your body is trying to prioritize overnight. Pairing tip, your daily walk from number 6 becomes significantly more effective for sleep when you do it outside in natural morning light. Morning light exposure resets your circadian clock and makes it measurably easier to fall asleep at night. These 2 habits build directly on each other. Coming up at number 4, we're going to talk about something most people eat every single day, and whether you're eating the version that quietly protects you or the version that quietly works against you. Number 4, anti-inflammatory eating. Food as your first line of defense. I want to be direct about something before we get into this. There is no single cancer-fighting food. Anyone who tells you otherwise is oversimplifying. What the research actually shows is a dietary pattern, a consistent daily way of eating that measurably reduces the chronic inflammation that drives cancer development. A comprehensive study published in JAMA Network Open, following women over 25 years, found that higher adherence to a Mediterranean dietary pattern was associated with meaningfully lower cancer mortality. The effects on cancer mortality were actually stronger than the effects on cardiovascular mortality in that same population. A separate prospective cohort study published in the journal Nutrients, examining more than 62,000 participants, found that women with moderate to high adherence to a Mediterranean-style diet had at least a 26% lower cancer risk compared to those with the lowest adherence. What does that pattern actually look like? Colorful vegetables, especially cruciferous ones like broccoli, cauliflower, and cabbage, legumes like lentils and chickpeas, whole grains, olive oil as your primary cooking fat, fatty fish like salmon or sardines 2 to 3 times per week, berries, nuts, seeds, and just as important as what you add is what you reduce. Processed foods, ultra-processed snack products, excessive red meat, and alcohol all consistently appear in the research as promoters of the kind of long-term low-grade inflammation that creates a cellular environment where cancer can take root. Chronic inflammation is that slow rust forming inside the pipe. 30 years of a pro-inflammatory diet is 30 years of rust building up. I had a patient, Eunice, 68 years old, from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, who had a strong family history of colorectal cancer and came to me genuinely frightened. She wasn't a heavy drinker, she didn't smoke, but her diet was what she called Southern comfort. Red meat most nights, very few vegetables, plenty of processed convenience foods. We did not overhaul everything at once. We started by replacing 2 dinners a week with salmon and vegetables, adding a handful of berries to her breakfast, and swapping white bread for whole grain. Small, sustainable shifts. Within a year, her colonoscopy results showed remarkable improvement in the condition of her gut lining. She said, "I thought eating healthy meant giving up everything I loved. Turns out it just meant adding things I'd never tried. The practical fix: think addition, not removal. Add 1 serving of leafy greens daily. Add berries to your breakfast 3 times a week. Add fatty fish twice a week. As you add more of these foods, the processed ones naturally get crowded out, without willpower battles." One pairing worth noting: this eating pattern and your daily movement from number 6 work through overlapping biological pathways. Together, they lower insulin, reduce circulating estrogen, and dial down inflammatory signaling more powerfully than either does on its own. Research from Harvard's T.H. Chan School of Public Health confirms that maintaining both healthy body weight and regular physical activity is, in their words, a big part of the battle for reducing cancer risk. Number 3. Sunlight and vitamin D, the immune regulator. You're probably missing here is something that may genuinely surprise you. Vitamin D is not just a nutrient your body stores. It functions more like a hormone, and it plays a direct regulatory role in how your immune system identifies and responds to abnormal cells, including early cancer cells. Research published in the British Journal of Cancer, drawing from the UK Biobank cohort of more than 300,000 adults, found that individuals with sufficient vitamin D levels had significantly lower risks of several cancers, including colorectal, breast, and lung cancer, compared to those who were deficient. A separate analysis from Harvard's T.H. Chan School of Public Health, reviewing data from the VITAL trial, a randomized controlled trial following more than 25,000 adults over 5 years, found that vitamin D3 supplementation was associated with a meaningful reduction in cancer mortality among participants who supplemented for at least 2 years. The exact mechanism is not fully understood, but researchers believe vitamin D directly influences gene expression related to cell growth, cell differentiation, and apoptosis, which is the process by which damaged or abnormal cells are programmed to self-destruct before they can multiply into tumors. The challenge is that deficiency is remarkably widespread. Studies suggest that more than 40% of American adults are vitamin D deficient, and the problem becomes significantly worse after age 50 when the skin becomes less efficient at producing vitamin D from sunlight exposure. I had a patient, James, 74 years old, from Cleveland, Ohio, who came in for a routine physical and mentioned persistent fatigue, some muscle weakness, and a feeling that his body wasn't fighting things off the way it used to. His blood work showed a vitamin D level of 14 nanograms per milliliter, severely deficient. The generally accepted adequate level is above 30, with many researchers suggesting optimal levels are closer to 50. We worked to correct his levels over 4 months. He called me 3 months in and said, "I don't know what you did, but I feel 10 years younger." He has not missed his daily vitamin D since. The practical fix has 2 parts. First, get 15 to 20 minutes of direct outdoor sunlight on your arms and legs between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. most days. You're not trying to tan, you're giving your skin the UV exposure it needs to produce vitamin D. Second, ask your doctor to check your 25-hydroxy vitamin D blood level at your next appointment. If it's below 30, talk about supplementation. Most adults over 50 benefit from 1,000 to 2,000 IU of vitamin D3 daily, though your doctor may recommend more depending on your specific result. Pairing tip: your morning walk from number 6 doubles its value when you take it between 10 and 11 a.m. outdoors. Movement benefit and vitamin D production in one 30-minute window. Up next, at number 2, I'm going to share something that took me years to fully appreciate. And when I tell you what the long-term data shows, I think you'll understand why I said it stopped me cold. Number 2, social connection and stress management, the cancer risk factor. No one warned you about. We talk constantly about diet, exercise, sleep, and vitamins. We almost never talk about the role of chronic psychological stress and social isolation in cancer risk. But the evidence is impossible to ignore. A comprehensive analysis published in the journal PLOS Medicine, following more than 300,000 adults across multiple countries over an average of 7.5 years, found that social isolation and loneliness were associated with a 26% increased risk of dying from cancer. not getting cancer, dying from it. The researchers concluded that social connection appeared to function as a direct biological buffer against the inflammation and immune suppression that accelerates cancer progression. The biological pathway researchers point to is the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, your body's chronic stress response system. When you are under sustained psychological pressure, worrying constantly, feeling cut off from people you care about, carrying grief without support, your body keeps cortisol elevated for long periods. Chronically elevated cortisol suppresses natural killer cells, which are precisely the immune cells responsible for identifying and eliminating early cancer cells before they can multiply into tumors. Think of it this way. Your immune system has a security team that patrols for cancer cells every single day. Chronic stress puts that security team on skeleton crew permanently. I had a patient, Helen, 76 years old, from Spokane, Washington, who had lost her husband 2 years before coming to see me. She was in good physical health. She walked regularly and ate reasonably well, but she had become profoundly isolated. Her children lived across the country. She had stopped attending her church group, and she spent most days alone. Her blood work showed elevated inflammatory markers and a suppressed immune profile that concerned me. We did not talk about adding another supplement. We talked about connection. She rejoined her church group, started a weekly video call schedule with her grandchildren, and joined a walking group at her local community center. Within 4 months, her inflammatory markers had normalized. She told me, "I didn't realize loneliness was a medical problem. I thought I just had to accept it." The practical fix is to treat social connection the way you treat exercise, as a non-negotiable health activity that you schedule, a 30-minute phone call with a friend 3 times a week, a standing weekly outing, a community class, water aerobics, painting, gardening, whatever you will actually show up for. For stress management specifically, consider structured breathing or guided meditation. Even 10 minutes per day of focused breath work has been shown to measurably lower cortisol levels within 8 weeks. Pairing tip: walking with another person, a neighbor, a friend, a spouse, gives you the movement benefit from number 6 and the social connection benefit here, all in one activity. Number 1, final item, controlling chronic inflammation, the root of almost everything. This is the one that ties it all together. If you have been paying close attention, you may have already noticed something. Movement reduces inflammation. Sleep reduces inflammation. Anti-inflammatory eating reduces inflammation. Vitamin D helps regulate the immune response to inflammation. Stress management lowers the cortisol that drives inflammation. Every single habit we have discussed today points back to one central biological process, and that process is chronic, low-grade inflammation. Researchers now understand that chronic inflammation is not just a symptom of disease. It is one of the primary drivers of cancer development. A detailed review published in Frontiers in Oncology, drawing on decades of accumulated evidence, concluded that chronic inflammation creates a cellular environment that encourages abnormal cells to survive, divide, and evade immune detection. Inflammation promotes new blood vessel growth that essentially feeds developing tumors. It suppresses the very immune cells that would otherwise destroy early cancer cells before they become a serious problem. And recent research from the Broad Institute and Harvard University found something that genuinely changed how I think about this. Chronic inflammation can leave what scientists are now calling epigenetic scars, molecular changes that persist in tissue even after the inflammation itself has resolved, leaving those tissues measurably more vulnerable to cancer for years afterward. Scientists at Harvard Medical School have confirmed that sustained inflammatory signaling can permanently alter gene expression in ways that prime cells for cancerous change, and that this can originate from inflammation in the gut, the lungs, breast tissue, and beyond. A large investigation from the European Prospective Investigation into Cancer and Nutrition, known as the EPIC study, followed more than 521,000 people across 10 countries for over a decade. The researchers found that individuals who consistently combined anti-inflammatory eating, regular physical activity, healthy sleep, and stress management had dramatically lower rates of several major cancers compared to those who maintained high inflammation lifestyles. Not one of these factors alone produced the full protective effect. The power was in maintaining them together over time. Here's the most practical way to think about this. Inflammation is not something you treat once, it is something you manage daily. And what I find genuinely encouraging about that, after 20 years of watching patients fight this disease, is that every single morning is an opportunity to give your body the signals it needs to protect you. You do not need to be perfect. You need to be consistent. I want to tell you about one more patient. Thomas, 73 years old from Richmond, Virginia, was a retired engineer who came to me 3 years ago after a stage 1 prostate cancer diagnosis. His cancer was caught early, and after treatment, his oncologist's goal was to prevent recurrence. Thomas was the kind of man who approached everything like a problem to be solved. He asked me, "Tell me exactly what to do." We built a plan together. 30 minutes of walking every day after lunch, 7 hours of sleep, non-negotiable, 2 servings of cruciferous vegetables daily, salmon 3 times a week, a standing phone call every Sunday with his 2 adult children, 15 minutes of morning outdoor light, and 1 omega-3 supplement daily with breakfast to directly target inflammatory pathways. Within 18 months, his PSA levels had remained completely stable. His oncologist described his inflammatory markers as remarkable for a man his age. Thomas told me, "I came in here scared. Now I feel like I'm the one in charge of my health for the first time in my life." That is exactly what I want for you. The practical framework for managing chronic inflammation comes down to 5 consistent actions. First, build an anti-inflammatory dietary pattern. Prioritize colorful vegetables, legumes, olive oil, fatty fish, berries, and whole grains, while pulling back on processed foods, added sugar, and excessive red meat. Second, move your body for 30 to 45 minutes most days at a pace that gets you warm, but lets you carry on a conversation. Third, protect 7 to 8 hours of consistent quality sleep each night. Fourth, get your vitamin D level tested and address any deficiency with your doctor's guidance. Fifth, treat your social and emotional health as seriously as your physical health. Schedule real connection with people who matter to you. Manage stress with intention, not just willpower. Researchers at the American Cancer Society and independent institutions, including Harvard and Johns Hopkins, now agree that people who maintain multiple healthy lifestyle habits simultaneously can reduce their overall cancer risk by 30 to 50% compared to people who maintain none of them. That is not a marginal difference. That is the difference between a life shadowed by fear and a life lived with genuine confidence in your body. I want to leave you with one thing. It is never too late. I have watched patients in their 70s and 80s make changes that their bodies responded to in ways that genuinely moved me. The human body has a remarkable capacity to repair, to adapt, to recover, even after decades of imperfect habits. Your biology is not fixed. It is responsive. Every morning you wake up is a fresh opportunity to give your body the conditions it needs to protect you. You do not have to change everything this week. Pick one habit from what we covered today. Just one. Start it this week. Add another one next month. Small, consistent actions, stacked over time, are exactly what the science supports. Not dramatic overhauls that last 3 days and leave you exhausted. Before you go, I want to ask you one specific question. Which of these 6 habits is your weakest link right now? Is it sleep, daily movement, what you eat, managing stress? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one, and I will reply to as many as I can. And if you have someone in your life, a parent, a spouse, a sibling, a close friend, who is over 50, please share this video with them today. Not because you're worried about them, because you love them, because they deserve to know this information exists. Take care of yourself. I'll see you in the next one.